Circuit Boom.
Jeri, I hear that you've done some sustaining. So you're working on a sustain pedal for a piano. Is that right? You're doing
Well, sustain. No. I've been experimenting with staining plastics with fabric dye. Um, RIT fabric dye. I've heard from several people. Dennis Norman, a famous pinball designer, talks about using RIT dye to stain pinball parts, and several people come through the chat room and have mentioned how they've stained parts on their RC cars. And so I've been refurbishing some pinball machines lately, and buying custom colored pinball parts like flipper paddles are kind of costly for the color ones. They're just gratuitously marked up like 4 times as much, and half the time they're not a color that matches the rest of the pinball game. So I've been experimenting with taking white flippers and staining them to match the machine that I want. For this I kind of wanted a pink color. I also experimented with staining rubber bands that go inside the pinball machines, and you can get various colors to customize your machine. And the way I do it, I take a hot plate, I fill it full of RIT dye and water, and I boil it, and I just dip the parts in with gloves, of course, and then I just repeatedly pull it out, check it, rinse it. One thing I did discover, though, is that you really, really want to make sure the part is clean before you start. You can see on this one that there's some splotchiness where maybe there were some fingerprints. I thought that was a great way to customize all kinds of plastic parts and rubber parts.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
totally.
very durable. I had to, one of these that I had a fingerprint on, I had to sand through the layer on it. It took me, with 600 grit sandpaper, a real long time, and I had to take quite a bit down before I got back to the white plastic.